Chapter 2. Granite. For 2 weeks the puppies lived in a place of darkness and silence. Their world was small, no larger than the feel of a rough tongue stroking the fur on their bellies and the taste of warm milk. Then Granite's eyes opened for the first time. Light streamed in, and slowly the blurry world took shape. He was nestled between his mother's paws, looking up at her face. When Seppala noticed his gaze, her own blue eyes widened, and she growled softly with satisfaction, then licked the nose of her firstborn. When Granite raised his head and looked out, he saw snow falling silently over a white land. As far as he could see, there was nothing but snow and spruce trees, their dark branches heavy with great fat flakes. Nestled beside him in the straw were his sister and brothers, all fast asleep. Seppala licked Granite's face again. It made him feel warm and happy. Another week passed, and sounds entered Granite's world. The rustle of straw, the squeals of his litter mates, the calls of birds. About this time, the puppy pulled his front paws under him and pushed. Suddenly, he was standing shakily on his front feet, sniffing the air. A strange smell filled his head. It was sharp, but not unpleasant. Before he could trace the smell to its source, he collapsed in a heap. The smell got stronger. A large hand swooped down and lifted him up. Granite yelped and squirmed, but it did no good. He was held tight. A growl rumbled deep in Seppala's throat, and Granite's heart beat fast. The commotion woke the other puppies, who began whining and nuzzling Seppala's belly. As soon as their mouths brushed a nipple, they fell silent and began sucking. Tim inspected Granite, who did not know whether to relax or bite the stranger. When the pup twisted, Tim spoke gently. The rumbling sounds that came out sounded friendly. Then he turned Granite about and put him back beside Seppala. Her tongue washed the strange scent from Granite's fur, and he felt safe again. He looked at his brothers and sisters, but they had fallen asleep. Once more he stood up. This time his legs were stronger. He staggered across the straw to the edge of the box and watched the creature that had picked him up become a blur in the snow. Before many days passed, Granite learned that these giant creatures cared for all the dogs in the kennel. At least 30 dogs lived in pens that stretched far across the flatland, nearly to the edge of the forest. As far as Granite was concerned, the humans belonged to the dogs. He watched them bring food, clean pens, and strew fresh straw in the sleeping boxes. Then they disappeared, only to return whenever a dog needed them. Around the dogs' kennels was a wire fence that protected the pups from the strange creatures that lived in the woods. Granite had never seen most of these animals, but when the sun was gone and the world turned black, he could hear the sounds they made as they searched for food. Already he knew the strong scent of the red fox, who prowled nearby each night, the tip of its tail waving white in the darkness. Another familiar scent was the spicy smell of the spruce squirrel, who chattered at the dogs from high branches. The other puppies paid no more attention to the fence, than did Granite. They spent most of their days tumbling about, chewing on sticks and rocks and each other. Sometimes they got so tired that they fell asleep in the middle of their games, too weary to scramble into the box and curl up beside their mother. At other times, life was too exciting for sleep. Each morning, when the kennel work was done, one of the humans harnessed some of the big dogs to a sled. When the dogs heard the shout, "Hike! Go get 'em!" they started to run. Off they went across the frozen lake, the runners skimming over the ice. The sight made Seppala whine with longing, for she was a racing dog, like the rest of them. Granite thought that his mother was beautiful. Her body and head were a silver gray, but like the insides of her sharp ears, her forehead and muzzle were white. Above her eyes ran a strip of tan outlined in black. Her ice blue eyes, rimmed in black, were shadowed by long white lashes. Her white tail was long and bushy, and it rose high in the air, then curled over and rested on her back. Granite, his brother Nugget, and his sister Cricket looked like their mother. But his brother Digger, who was the biggest pup of all, was black where Seppala was gray, and the white blaze on his forehead was narrow instead of wide like hers. Each time a sled came out of the storehouse, Digger, Nugget, and Cricket lined up at the fence, yelping with excitement. Granite didn't yelp at all. In silence, he watched the big dogs pulling the sled and going where the lead dog took them. Then he left his noisy brothers and sister and raced through the kennel yard, going wherever the world's delicious smells lured him.